If someone wanted to find out about what the incidence of fires or explosions or spills is at these kinds of sites, because now, from what I understand in Colorado, almost all the wells are fracked now, where would they go?
Well, you know, the Denver Post did a really good summary report on that last June. They just went into the records of the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission, and they found some alarming information about 1,000 incidents where fluids were released to the surface or some kind of event over just a 30-month period. I mean, that means an accident happens nearly every day. And about half of them were associated with some volume of frac fluid. And so this is the kind of spills I'm talking about, where you know, especially spills in the undiluted product are going to be the most toxic.
And toxicity usually is worse with children and elderly, right?
Indeed. I mean, you know, compromised health of a person is going to make them more vulnerable.
So there's schools and so on around here and homes.
Right.
When people have wells on their own property or on state property, are they required to notify the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission if there's an incident, or is there a reporting requirement at all?
They can report, yes. I mean, and often citizens do if they see something changing in their water well. The Oil and Gas Commission is moving towards a mandatory baseline testing, but just within a mile of the well of any existing domestic well. And I must say right away, that's a poor way to test the groundwater. As scientists, we don't want to use an existing domestic well to test. They're often, we don't know where they're completed or where the pump is set. We just know little about their completion because they were done by a water well driller. What we prefer is monitoring wells drilled and established by a geologic professional, so that we know for certain which formation they're completed in and which formation they're drawing water from. And so what Colorado's Oil and Gas Commission is doing is at least requiring some baseline testing for domestic wells within 1 mile of a new well.
And that will help with people who, for example, on private land have incidents of contamination.
That would help them, yeah, that would help them set the baseline conditions so they know if something changed, it might well be the industry that did it. But I must say, this industry is very adept of not of deferring, defending itself against claims of liability. Unlike every other industry, this industry is exempt from CERCLA. It's exempt from the Superfund law.
What's CERCLA?
CERCLA is the Comprehensive Environmental Response and Liability Act of 1984. It was set up after the Love Canal disaster in New York. It stands for any property owner that has contamination on their land is responsible. Now think about that. You're responsible for contamination on your land. It doesn't say you're responsible if you did it. If you buy a piece of property and it's contaminated, you're responsible. It's just like owning a high-rise that might fall down on somebody. You're responsible for the contamination on your land. Last night in the Channel 12 thing, Tricia Conley-Schuler tried to say, well, we the oil industry need defense, as if somebody claims you committed a burglary and you deserve your right to defend yourself. Well, this industry has a unique right. And because of the complexities of tracing underground pollution, it's a very difficult legal path to convict an oil company for contamination in the field. They should be subject to CERCLA, which would be joint and several liability, and then contamination would be based on ownership, not on proof by the government.
So currently, no one, neither the landowner nor the oil and gas company, there's no central federal agency that they report incidents to, no central database that's being accumulated?
Well, with respect to incidents, I can't remember this volume. I mean, there's mandatory reporting of spill to the federal government and to the state government. I can't remember the volumes. It seems like 5 barrels or something like that. In this Lowry range, there's a unique and intact creek. What's the name of the creek? I can't think of the name of the stream right now.
There's one no-name creek in there in Denver.
Yeah, but this long riparian land with cottonwood trees, I mean, it certainly is particularly vulnerable. And any spill that can flow into there will be difficult to contain because it's sandy and it easily goes into the stream system. So there is a reporting requirement for spills. That doesn't mean they do it. It's a vast open country out there. And you know, there's certainly been cases where there has been a spill and nobody reports.
But the open pits and any other industry would be required to report that they have an open pit with volatile compounds that are toxic, wouldn't they?
Yes, yes. And one thing that sets us apart is because the way we manage the Clean Air Act, often these individual pits don't emit enough to cause them to be subject to permitting and restrictions. And under the Bush administration, EPA and states were blocked from considering a whole well field as a single source in order for these permit restrictions to apply. Now, I will say here in Weld County, because VOCs contributed to ozone violation in the city of Denver and in the metropolitan area, there has been an effective effort by CPHE to try to control these VOCs. And so
That's Colorado Public Health and Environment.
Right, Colorado Public Health. But I don't know if that would apply down here, but it must. It would have to. It's in the upper part of the airshed. And so this is an excellent case to make right now, Sonia, that the Colorado State Land Board must make a lease restriction prior to leasing, before it sells the thing on the chopping block, that this be done with, if it's going to be drilled, with green completion without pits. It has the power to do that, and it must do that before it leases.